Every one of us is curious to some extent or another. We are curious about each other. We are curious about what someone's day looks like. We are curious about what somebody thinks about a given topic, even if we might not agree with what they think about that given topic. And many of us are familiar with that phrase, curiosity killed the cat. It's generally a warning to not be curious about certain things, because if you are curious and you learn too much about something, then there's some kind of danger involved or some kind of warning that you should be aware of. But that isn't the full saying. The full saying is curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. And so this is where curiosity really gets the better of us. And that, in conjunction with photography in public, is what I'm talking about today. Guys, if you're new to me, I'm a barrister who helps you understand law. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos, because I might be able to help you in ways that you least expected. So what does curiosity have to do with the title of this video? Public photography is not a crime. Well, here in the United Kingdom, we have an unshakable reputation for being polite and courteous. However, this all seems to fall away when somebody appears to cross a very thin line and appears to become discourteous in some sense or another. So applying that to photography in general, a lot of people do not like having their photograph taken, and I would say that they fall into a couple of different camps. Either they are just avoiding having their photograph taken, maybe because they just don't like having it taken. And then there's other people that absolutely hate having their photograph taken, maybe because they've had bad experiences with a photograph, maybe they just hate any photograph that they look at of themselves because they don't like how they look, or maybe they just don't like looking at themselves. And when you apply that thought process to the concept of public photography, where they are not in control of the photograph, this is potentially a recipe for disaster. Most people value their privacy very highly, and particularly in respect of photographs and videos of themselves. But the issue that many people face is that there is no general law prohibiting photography or videography in a public place if there's no reasonable expectation of privacy. And in most cases, when people are out in public, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in most situations, although every case will turn on its own facts, and there will be some scenarios. Perhaps there's an incident which is completely unexpected, uncontrolled, and that person would, under an objective assessment of a reasonable person, would have some level of a reasonable expectation of privacy. But until some very specific circumstances are tested in court, there is no definitive rule or guide as to what scenario is going to amount to a reasonable expectation of privacy in a public place. Now, tying these threads together a little bit, as I said, there is this general reputation for being courteous and polite throughout the United Kingdom, and particularly in England. So when these boundaries are perceivably crossed, that someone is suddenly being rude because they are photographing or videoing in public, there is invariably a reaction from that person to attempt to protect what they perceive as their right to privacy, even though they are in a public place. And invariably, this gives rise to a confrontation between said person and said photographer or videographer, because in most circumstances in a public place, the person being photographed or videoed actually does not have that right to control the person who is taking said photographs or videos. Now, by no means whatsoever am I promoting or encouraging these kind of confrontations that end up on YouTube, confrontations between videographer and members of the public, or police officers or security guards, or anyone else for that matter. But equally, and as I often like to do on this channel, is offer up a fair and objective assessment of both sides of the coin in any given situation. So then when we look at what is a typical response to somebody out filming or taking photographs in public, there's generally three types of responses. One I'd like to call the observer, that is just somebody that will stand around and watch what's going on but not actually get involved, often referred to as a passive bystander. Another type of response that many people will think is more sensible is just to walk away from the situation. But equally, lots of people will feel that they don't have to walk away, or they shouldn't have to walk away, and that somehow there is a right not to be photographed or not to be filmed in public. But of course that isn't true. There is no general law prohibiting that. So invariably, the third category, for those that don't just stand and watch and those that don't walk away, is some kind of confrontation. And of course, this is what fuels lots of YouTube content, and this is where it gets a little bit heated. The comments or the question will range from very simple ones such as why are you filming me, what are you filming, what are you filming for, and questions like this, right up to stern declarations that it's an invasion of privacy, that they are not allowed to film without consent and permission, they are breaking the law, and all of these kinds of things. And equally, those kind of questions and comments will spur a response from the photographer. And it is these very entangled principles that give rise to these confrontations in the first place. The reputation for being polite and courteous, the curiosity about what's going on and any kind of commotion to either stand by and watch what's happening or get involved in what's happening, mixed in with this perception that someone may be crossing a line and being discourteous if they are filming out in public without someone's consent. But as the title of this video suggests, public photography is not a crime. Unless, of course, the behaviour fits into that very narrow exception where someone's behaviour will amount to harassment of another, or it might amount to a real security concern for various buildings, if that is genuinely perceived to be a security risk, for example, or in situations that are yet to be tested in court as to whether there is a reasonable expectation of privacy in a very specific set of facts whilst someone is out in public. So, as you will very often hear me say on this channel, I like to promote a civil and friendly society. And I think that goes for both sides of this equation, those that are out doing filming and photographs in public, and those that are being photographed, even if they don't like it. Now, of course, I'm not saying that people that don't like to be filmed should suddenly start liking it, because that's just not going to happen. But equally, confronting the photographer is not likely to have a positive outcome. And on the other hand, I'm not saying that photographers should stop filming in public because other people don't like it, but at the same time, I think there are going to be some very reasonable examples of how to photograph or film in public, and equally there are going to be some unreasonable ways of going about this, even if those ways are not strictly illegal. So those are my initial thoughts on filming in public. I'd be very interested in reading your comments below, and I'll respond to some of those over on Black Belt Secrets, where I answer your questions in the comments. So thanks for joining me for this video, and I'll see you next time.